Alzone. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Chaplain Jessie Ford, and my pronouns are Jay and Jessie. It's true.
Yeah.
It's a true thing. Those are my pronouns. Words are fine for a Sunday service, but music is better, and if you can add art as well, that's a sweet spot. That's not going to happen this morning. Except maybe in our mind's eye, okay? This moment in time is really complicated, and one can hardly look at or hear or be told about the latest news without cringing. Democracy seems to be falling apart in many places. Climate change is proceeding apace, and we know we've got at least 20 years in the bank, even if we stopped today, which we're not going to. And artificial intelligence seems to be taking over most modes of communication, making it curiously difficult to figure out who you actually are talking to. We often ask each other, excuse me, is this a robocall? You know, and often it is, and it says, why no, it's not. So,
So even they lie.
yeah, it's just like, you know, the most sobering example I had of that was a sermon or two ago. I sent in my copy for the little blurby thing, and the service leader for that day said, well, I made a few changes in it, I hope that's okay. And that was great because I didn't like what I'd written. And I read it, it was great. And she said, yeah, I ran it through ChatGPT and put in, make it more secular. So I'm gonna do that from now on. It makes me look so much better. And if it tries to tell me to do something I don't want to do, I hope I remember, you know. So it's hard to focus these days. It's hard to plan. It's hard to see a way forward. We've had a lot of news this morning about illness, about the loss of moving places. It's a lot to take in. We don't know where we're going. We don't know how we're going to get there. We don't know who are going to be our companions along the way, but you know, we're hardly alone in this. I mean, this is not the first time this has happened. For example, these times are really actually pretty common in human history. But for example, the example I want to bring to mind today is about 60 years ago, when much of the African continent was in complete tumult because the shackles of colonial oppression were being cast off in one way and another, some more effective than others, some more longer lasting than others. Many different modes of tossing off those shackles, alignments were happening, reforming, and the fight was for self-governance. And during this time, there was a Ghanaian drummer by the name of Sol Amarifio who wrote this great liberatory song about meeting these kinds of moments. It's called Woyaya. And actually, I was reminded about all this on Tuesday night when we had the pleasure of hosting Sammy Awad, who is a co-founder and co-director of Nonviolence International. He lives in Bethlehem in the West Bank in Palestine. And he gave a wonderful talk, and Mark Levy also helped. I got it right. For once. Mark Levy also gave us some beautiful music in 3 languages, both before the talk and then a special gift at the end also to bookend this time together. Well, Woyaya, which we're going to be singing together later, a version of it, like many other African scat syllables, can have many meanings, but according to the composer, in this time and in this place in Africa, it simply meant we are going. Okay? And it was recorded and released by the Ghanaian Caribbean Afro pop band Osi Bisa in 1971. So this song has been around for a while. And here there are pictures of the group and a link to the song that we will be playing some other day, maybe. It was sung as part of an intense, prolonged, multifaceted struggle, or struggles, I should actually say, in which Native Africans were facing increasingly escalating violence and repression from white political institutions that were trying to consolidate their colonial power and hang on to it. The song was sung in work camps throughout Central West Africa in the 70s and 80s, and I sort of class it as survival music, in that the people singing it intended to survive, if not necessarily personally, then at least for their families and their communities. It was a very difficult time, and a lot of people died. Now, these days, people often mistake Woyaya for a kind of a wishful, sentimental song, because it's light. It says things like, we are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Woyaya, 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 woyaya. And we'll start in a higher key later. You know, I love this song, and the person that is singing this on a YouTube, which I highly recommend, is an artist by the name of, let me just make sure I get her name right. She uses her middle name, Wiyala. She's also Ghanaian. Now, interestingly, Wiyala was born in 1986. She was born 15 years after the song was written. And she's singing it, and it's still a beautiful thing. It sounds sort of like a light tune, and you can sing it, and they're dancers and they're drums. But then it moves into kind of ecstatic dance and twirling and leaping and just, furious, fantastic joy. And why? In the face of all of this? Well, because we can. That's why. That's why, because we can. And because if we don't, we've lost the point, right? Mm-hmm. Because the point isn't to be grim. The point is to own our lives. The point is to have sovereignty over our own bodies in our own places. The point is to be in relationship with each other, and that's a great thing. We can cook together, we can play together, we can dance together, and yes, we can fight oppression together. Now, I love this song because it's a touchstone for me. It starts by saying, we are going. We, not I. This is a song about collective enterprise. There's no single hero or heroine, I guess, slaying dragons or leading us on. There is us, and us that changes and morphs as people drop in and drop out, which is fortunate, that there's this complicated diversity of us, because as Aeneas Nin wrote in her diaries, we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. So it's good to work with the diversity of other people who we can count on to see things differently. They see things as they are, because with all of our different perceptions and a commitment to both and instead of either or, notwithstanding the fact that that's an either or, we have a better chance of describing the actual nature of the elephant that all of us blind people are touching one part of. It's curly and small. No, it's smooth and large. No, it's got a thing that kind of moves up and down. Well, it's got these hard things next to the ground. They're all true. All those things are true, and we need all of them. We need all the parts of the information. So, we can't do this alone. We are inviting ourselves in this moment to do it together. The poet Marge Piercy put it this way in her poem, The Low Road. What can they do to you? Whatever they want. They can set you up, they can bust you, they can break your fingers, they can burn your brain with electricity, they can blur you with drugs till you can't walk or can't remember. They can take your child, they can wall up your lover. They can do anything you can't stop them from doing. How can you stop them? Alone, you can fight, you can refuse, you can take what revenge you can, but they roll over you. But two people fighting back to back can cut through a mob. A snake dancing file can break a cordon. An army can meet an army. Two people can keep each other sane, can give support, conviction, love, massage, hope, sex. Three people are a delegation, a committee, a wedge. With four people, you can play bridge and start an organization. With six, you can rent a whole house, eat pie for dinner with no seconds, and hold a fundraising party. A dozen make a demonstration, 100 fill a hall, 1,000 have solidarity and their own newsletter, 10,000 power in your own media, we've seen that for sure, 10 million your own country. It goes on, one at a time. It starts when you care to act. It starts when you do it again after they say no. It starts when you say we and know who you mean. And each day you mean one more. So we are going, as the song says. That is, we're moving. Just like life itself is always moving, it's always flowing in so many directions all at once. We can only ever make sense of it in retrospect. And we're not standing still. We're not being immovable objects in the face of an irresistible force. We are journeying, we're moving together with the times, which is a good thing because the times are changing very, very quickly right now. And we need to be fluid and flexible and receptive. Heaven knows where we're going. A statement of puzzlement, perhaps bewilderment, a letting go of our individual intentions, but also a statement of trust in the power of something greater than ourselves, a mysterious, collective yes, a statement in faith, of faith, maybe perhaps faith in community, faith in our individual selves, faith from another perspective in the power of heaven or heavens. No one of us can say where this can lead, and yet together there is a way. Now here, you'll see a slide in your mind's eye of a snowy scene in North Dakota in December of 2016. there's a plain near a river, a small plain, and it is populated cheek to jowl with cars and teepees and yurts and tents and people. This is Standing Rock. The Standing Rock Band of Lakota people began resistance to the planned Dakota Access Pipeline, which would have moved millions of barrels of oil through both Standing Rock and Cheyenne River reservations beneath the Missouri River and Lake Oahe. Ultimately, thousands of people, indigenous and not, came from all over the world to Oceti-Sakowin, 7 council fires, sacred resistance peace camp, to witness and demonstrate. And we were instructed, they said, how many of you here came to fight the Black Snake? They said, well, please go home. This is a sacred resistance peace camp. That's what we're doing. It's a very particular kind of training. Well, the pipeline was temporarily blocked, but under a change of administration, ultimately it was fast-tracked through and is carrying millions of barrels of oil under the Missouri River, under Lake Oahe. And ironically, or predictably, the original preferred route was just north of Bismarck, but it was deemed too dangerous to the local water supply for that route to be approved. So it was moved to go through sacred tribal lands, endangering the entire Missouri River watershed, not to mention local water supplies. Now, some may see the existence of this pipeline as a statement that the resistance failed. And yet something more profound that could not have been predicted happened at Oceti-Sakowin. As you would expect, every morning there was a traditional prayer circle to which everyone was welcome. The central ceremonial fire was tended 24/7 and burned throughout the months of the encampment. It did not go out. Along the main drive into camp were hundreds of tribal flags waving in the frigid North Dakota winds. And it was cold when I was there. I was only there about 36 hours. It was the most intense experience I've ever really had, and I was better treated than I've been treated anywhere. These flags represented tribes from all over North America and probably beyond. Many were flown by nations that had become deeply antagonistic to each other during the colonial wars, in which tribes had fought on different sides for different reasons. So profound intertribal healings happened at Oceti-Sakowin, and these continue to feed tribal resistance and creative responses to the ongoing colonizing pressures on their sovereign lands. Also, and by way of a footnote, really, I mean, it's just a footnote, the camp had profound effects on guests like myself who had never had the experience of living in a tribally led community. That would be several thousand of us, and we tend to think that we're the big story. We're not the big story. We're a footnote. Heaven alone knew where it was going. Heaven saw fit to feed pride, dignity, resistance, courage, solidarity. These things happened. They weren't planned. The UU minister of the Bismarck UU congregation wrote in a recent essay. The Bismarck congregation was very involved in this, as you might expect, but because they were asked. First they were asked for paper towels, and they said, oh, certainly lots of paper towels. Then they were asked for toilet paper. Well, before you knew it, yurts were going up, sponsored by the UU congregation in response to requests, and they were doing all sorts of things. But Karen Van Fossen, Reverend Karen Van Fossen wrote, the longer I was part of Oceti-Sakowin camp, the more I learned to live by love. To put it into daily practice in a co-created culture of abolition, which is to say a collection of hopeful practices that foster wholeness and repair rather than punitive ways of relating. That's my parenthetical thing, what abolition is. A co-created culture in which every person, every being truly matters. As a contemporary movement, she writes, led by Black women, as well as a long-time worldview held by many indigenous cultures, abolition is less an ideology than a way of life. She goes on to point out that at Oceti Sakowin, about 100,000 people came and went, roughly. Everyone was housed, everyone was fed, everyone who needed medical attention got medical attention. People with disabilities were central, actually, to camp life and decision-making, with access to general health care, as well as the particular attention of volunteer camp security, who brought them firewood and other needed supplies. School for children was well-staffed and well-organized, free and intercultural. All of this was free. Nobody paid for anything. A library and an adjacent tent teemed with books and materials of all ages. Elders were served first at every meal, and I can attest that if an elder needed something, it was often simply noticed and just quietly supplied without even asking. The day we stood in a circle, we encircled the camp, the peace camp on the day of prayer, and it was really cold, and I hadn't eaten because I was too busy soaking everything in. And there were some young men that provided some straw bales for some of the native elders, and then to my shock, I was just sitting on the snow, and then to my shock, they pushed me and said, get up, and they gave me a straw bale as well. I didn't ask. They just said, it's cold down there, come sit on the straw bale. So. Van Fossen quotes Rattler, who you may have heard of. He was famously incarcerated, among the incarcerated people. He is, or was, an Oglala Lakota member of Camp Security. The Camp Security doesn't exist anymore. As far as I know, he does. He spoke of camp in this way. He said, when you come into camp, you're family. That's why I told the security guys at the gate to say, welcome home to everyone when they came in. Security gate. No alcohol, no drugs, no guns, no knives, except for cooking. When you're at home, that's your family. That's your love. That's your community. That's what we were. I love you because you're family, and we'll defend each other. We'll help each other out. Explaining our justice system, so to speak, is kind of hard to do. It's more just part of life. So the road to, at, and beyond Oceti Sakowin was indeed muddy and rough, as the song goes. Often it was not clear to anyone where or how things were going. That's one purpose of a ceremonial prayer camp, to discover this together. Can we reconcile ourselves to that and decide to move together anyway? Can we do that? Because life is going to keep moving along with or without us, so we might as well take the road with friendly company and give each other a hand, helping each other out. And oh, by the way, it's really okay to sing and dance and laugh and play along the way, because, well, we're going to do this anyway, so why not, right? But we'll get there, even if we don't know where there is today. We know within, with a confidence that defies all logic and reason. We will get there. The only way out is through. We don't know how many months or years or decades or centuries it may take. I mean, some people have been fighting this for 500 years or more. But there's no doubt that we will, as a community, get there, even if none of our current community makes it. So again, as the poet has said, it goes on one at a time. It starts when you care to act. It starts when you do it again after they say no. It starts when you say we and know who you mean. And each day you mean one more. Amen, Amen, and may it ever be so. Let's take a minute to think about this, and then I'm going to give you a little help on understanding how we're going to go through Woyaya.